Hello and welcome to Hidden Existence. Hope everybody is doing all right out there tonight, and Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a good one, bringing it in, and that it is going to be a good one for people this year. We need one, don't we? So I've got a great show tonight. With me, of course, my co-host on a Wednesday night is coming all the way from the Paranormal Portal. It's Brent Thomas. How you doing, Brent?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back. It's been a long time, but I think I remember how to do this.
Well, we can give it a go, can't we? We'll get through it, I'm sure. We'll get
We
through it.
always do. We always
But
do.
we have got a great guest tonight. A lot of people have been asking about him as well to come on, and he's finally made it. It's Scott Carpenter. How you doing, Scott?
Doing great. It's great to be on again.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a couple of
Yeah,
years, I
it
think,
is.
last time we caught up. And I really liked the fact that you do you help people. You're after supporting people and doing what you can for them. And I think that's more important than anything in this subject is, I've always said Bigfoot's like, we can't reach Bigfoot, but we can reach people and we can help them. So you've gone a little bit quiet, I think, after we spoke. I know COVID came and
Yeah.
sort of things kind of, petered out. What's been happening since?
Well, yeah, I mean, as you know, or maybe don't know, I've started the Sasquatch Awareness Project, and that was born out of it wasn't a partnership, but back when Steve Ishtal first started doing his thing, we were talking, and it was before COVID, and he was trying to figure out how best to tackle this deal and kind of push through some of the established Bigfoot quote authorities to try to get the truth through. And when COVID hit, it kind of just threw everything in a tailspin. He couldn't come down here, I couldn't go up there. And and David Pilates got involved, and all three of us were trying to work something out, and pretty much ended up kind of just not like a plan or anything. It's kind of like we all just did our own thing. In other words, we all took our niche of what we were good at. And Steve, found his thing with the reading of the encounters. David's doing his 411 things and the missing people, and now he's gotten, into all kinds of different content. And I went the way of doing the Sasquatch Awareness Project. Trying to make and no offense to anybody, but like you call them normies, or those people who are really not into the subject or don't know what a Sasquatch is, but have an encounter. And then basically the way it is, or the way it used to be, probably still is, you don't know anything about the creatures or anything about them at all. You have an encounter, freaks you out, you deal with PTSD, and then you scramble to try to find good information. And while there's all kinds of websites, half the people, community, whatever you want to call them, is out there trying to prove it, trying to find a video, trying to show video, and the other half's over here arguing about whether it's an ape or, a human. And there really wasn't, very few were out there trying to actually, give the best information they possibly could and continue to update that information and assist and help people. And I just kind of felt that was, my calling. It was to do that. I'm even back, right after the Sasquatch DNA study was over and things were kind of petering out there. We were getting emails, and I was getting inquiries. David was getting inquiries about help because people, there was, and I was like, even back then, like, Dave, what do we do with these? Because we've got these handful of people that reach out for us. They having a problem on their farm, and the law enforcement refuses to come out. After several times, law enforcement says, don't call us anymore for this problem. We don't deal with this. And then, call, your wildlife. And then when they would call, a wildlife officer, they come out and they weren't equipped to handle it. And, oh yeah, we can see, it didn't matter. These people were like, we're showing them pictures and they see the prints. And they're just like, look, this ain't our deal. If it was a bobcat or if it was a bear, we could deal with it. But we don't deal with these things. And so, they literally leaving people on their own. I mean, I've had people tell me that. They literally tell them, don't call us back. We're not coming out next time this thing shows up. And so,
it's sad, isn't it? It's sad to know It's
Yeah,
upsetting to think there's just nowhere for
yeah,
people to go, and
exactly. And then,
these
you know,
amazing
I,
encounters.
yeah, and I went into it, and I got myself involved, with and these, unintended consequences. And, a lot of people are ignorant going in and they don't understand what they're getting into. They think they watch TV shows and they think, oh, this is something, me and the kids can go to on the weekend. And unfortunately, 6 months into it, they find out that may be not the smartest thing to done when, there's handprints on the window and their kids come screaming down the hallway because there's two red eyes staring in at them. And they're like, hey, this wasn't, this is what I signed up for. And so, I mean, just giving you an example, that's kind of where it was and going. And then, so that's why I started that. And then Steve Ishdahl, he did some promotions and kind of got my name out there to a broader crowd, which I really, really appreciate. I really didn't ask him. He just said, we're going to get you going. And so it was amazing how he could hold a book up and say, buy this book. And I mean, literally, my book sales were like at a trickle, and it just went off it literally went off the charts. And it's all still amazes me that someone has that kind of, nice a guy like he is, but he can just literally hold the book up and point at it. And then,
Sure.
so I
Influential.
really, but that helped kind of, get things going to get me enough recognition that then I could get into the Sasquatch Awareness Project. I wrote the book and I had my little blog or website. And then, I kind of switched my YouTube channel over from, one time it was mostly research. And then I kind of, like you said, I kind of went dormant because there wasn't anything else to do in the Sasquatch research community. And I kind of stopped that. And then, I've rolled that over now in featuring the Sasquatch Awareness Project and trying to give accurate, best information that we have and give advice and give people, some tools and knowledge, what's going on with Sasquatch, and, give my opinion sometimes and give, have other people write me things that they tried that worked, and, just kind of sharing the knowledge, sharing information. There's no experts. Well, and I'm not an expert. There's no experts. And, we'll never probably figure all this out.
I
But,
think
No.
working together with other people, we can, help each other and give the best advice we can and try to give sound advice.
and I think these kind of projects are really important because while there aren't any experts, the one thing we really have, and that is a lot of testimonials. And I think each testimonial, I mean, you have to take into consideration that, of course, everybody sees things different. And of course, they're adrenalized when they're going through these things. So maybe they're not sometimes seeing everything clearly. But I think everybody's observation adds to the body of knowledge, because while we don't have a carcass and we don't have a lot of things, what we do have is at least a rudimentary behavioral model of these things in at least very limited circumstances. So
Yeah.
and I think that is extraordinarily powerful when you look at the entire body of testimonials.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like together we're all building this database, but
Right.
as before, it was all geared around proving it and sightings. Now we're kind of switching the focus. We're kind of getting, okay, we're through proving it. Look, these
Yeah.
people have seen these things.
Right.
I've seen them. So the proof, let's get out of the proof phase. Let's get out of the dealing with it phase. Let's get into the, what do you do if you buy your dream log cabin, and then 3 weeks into this, one of these creatures shows up,
Mm.
and now your dream cabin has become a nightmare,
Mm.
and you can't move. You've sunk your whole life savings into this place. What do you do? That's the kind of thing that's, like you said, that's what we're dealing with, and that's what we're trying to share. And by gathering, like you say, all the different reports and the information, my experience and others' experience, we can kind of get a profile of how how they respond, and ways to counteract what they're doing.
Mm.
From the basic, put up trail cameras around your house, put up extra lighting, to go into the spiritual side of it. And it's all there, and it's all, try to give people those tools. And that way, so they've got these tools, we know what has worked or has worked well. So, be able to give that information to someone.
Mm. I always think we get so much more information from people when it's not on the telly, on the YouTube. When people are just talking privately, people give a lot more information.
Oh, yeah.
What have you learned about Bigfoot? Do you think? I mean, I know it's such a wild question, but what do you think you've picked up, or what are your feelings as you say over this last 2 years?
Yeah, I got visual things. You say, what have I learned?
There you go.
I've got like,
but
800 pages, but yeah, I mean, here, I guess I'll do the Bigfoot one-on-one thing. And this is my opinion based on my experience and what I've learned, and also from others, but from the DNA study, et cetera. The Sasquatch is a human hybrid of some sort. We know that the DNA is a mitochondrial, which comes from female, is human. The nuclear is unknown. Still to this day is unknown. There's a lot more DNA work that probably could be done, but it's kind of a moot point and it's very expensive. But we know we're dealing with a very extremely intelligent being, one that it basically is just like us. I mean, that's the big thing that I had to come to grips with. That is, we're dealing with a people. I call it a creature sometimes, and people call it a thing or a monster, but they're really a people. They're like us. They have emotions, will, intellect. They have motives. They have goals. They have aspirations. And so when you encounter one, there's that whole dynamic going on. You don't have a clue what his or her or its day's been like. You don't know, they may be in the middle of a hunt for a deer. They may be in the middle of a clan war. They may be, doing some sort of ceremonial thing and you've interrupted. So, coming to grips with the fact that they are that intelligent. And also there's genetic diversity and there's diversity of personalities and types. They're just like us. I mean, black, white, green, yellow, purple, come in all colors, shapes, and sizes. There's the traditional look, but then there's, some of them looking so human it scares you. And then others, have the big brow and the dark set eyes and the wide flat nose and a little bit of a cone on the head. And others have I think one woman reported the one she saw was an extremely handsome man. She said a very good looking, other than he was covered with hair.
Yeah.
But said his features were human, totally human. The face was a human face, 100%.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask you. And, some people, and I don't expect you to, dive deep into it, but I think you've kind of touched on it already. But I've kind of considered the same thing from my limited body of knowledge, is just that, some people like to throw around, well, type this, type that, and there's these types. And while there may be merit to that. I don't know, but was your opinion that there are potentially different types, or do you just think that that's the biodiversity?
I think it's just the genetic diversity.
Okay. Yeah.
There, we could get into the spiritual aspect of types, but I think for a general discussion, it's better just to say that there are different types. Now, and just like in the human population, I mean, that's one thing. When I started getting into the study of the Sasquatch and I was getting photos and I was looking at other people's photos, and everybody gets their mind, well, they're just supposed to look a certain way. And then you start looking at people. You start looking at how people's noses are formed. You've got some crazy, I mean, we've got human beings have everything from a little bit of skinny horn snout to a wide flat nose to everything in between. Some people have upturned nostrils. Everybody says, oh, but that's well, I hate to tell you, but I could name a couple of movie stars I know that have upturned nostrils. I'm sorry, but they do. So I don't think they're Sasquatches.
And I think also, living in the swamps, living in woods, you have to adapt.
Yeah, exactly. And
possibly, I mean, I don't know, but you would think maybe they designed a little bit different.
Well, even our DNA, there are markers in everybody's DNA that certain aspects can get turned off and on. Proteins
Mhm.
You know, there's been studies and different like hair growth or other things can happen to you while you're in that environment. So
Mm.
there's nothing that would crew me to think that they don't have the same ability, maybe even better, because their DNA, does appear to have been manipulated in some sort of a manner. So,
Mm.
of course, it always said, well, who did it? I don't know who did it. It just, the DNA studies show that there was some, looked like there had been some DNA manipulation. So we don't, DNA wise, they may be more adaptable to the environment than even we are, which would
Oh,
go to the different your different varieties, the different. I mean, they have different skin colors, gray, Caucasian, black, tan,
sure.
white. Uh, was
There's
it
a whole
gray?
mix, isn't there?
Yeah, blue. I mean, there's blue ones, with blue hair, and so there's just a mix,
Mm.
total genetic mix of what you might find, and they unfortunately, I think they still crossbreed with human beings from time to time. I don't know how prevalent it is, but
Mm.
Mm.
from the
That would
ones I've
be,
seen, that'd be horrid, but
I
I think it still goes on.
I'd like to just inject my opinion there because I think that a lot of people say that human beings are so adaptable and we are within reason, but as far as our environment is concerned, the only thing we're really good at is creating our own comfort no matter where we are. It's not
Yeah,
like, and these things are just naturally adapted to deserts, to mountains, to swamps, to plains. I mean, they just, wherever they are, they thrive. And that
yeah,
to me is just incredible.
yeah. They're the ultimate survivor. They'll eat garbage.
Mm,
They'll steal. I mean, they'll hunt. I mean, wherever they're at, they'll dumpster dive. I mean, they take advantage of our willful ignorance, and
yeah.
I think they're cognizant and aware of their standing in our culture, and that they're still in that mythical realm, and I think they take full advantage of it.
Mm,
I mean, I'm no doubt they come into my little town and they wander around backyards and they dumpster dive. And I've heard other people talk. I mean, I've heard other people in larger towns talk about, like coming out of their apartment complex and they're standing beside, seeing them stand beside a dumpster
mm.
and, moving around in the sewers, because, you got to think there's all kinds of ways to get around a city.
mm,
Some of them are not very pleasant, but like you said, they don't care. So,
yeah.
they're very adaptable.
Mm,
And I
Mm.
think they could live just about anywhere. And I think they've been reported on every continent except everybody says Hawaii, and then someone comes up and says, "Well, there's some sort of form of them in Hawaii."
The little
And
people that are
yeah,
in
and
Hawaii.
in Antarctica, and who knows, they may be in Antarctica. Just nobody's been able to go down there and look for them.
Yeah.
sure.
The
Mm,
So
thing
yeah,
is,
they're
we just don't have enough information, do we, to really
exactly.
know what these things are at the end of the day. But interesting is, I mean, I'm interested in like the behavior and
Yeah,
do you think there's a difference in if you're a male, if you're a lone male or a lone female, the
I think
behavior?
so.
Have you
Yeah,
picked up that?
uh, I think it's situational as much it is, but they do. I mean, Dave Pilates did a little thing about who has the most sightings statistically, and it was women and children. I'm talking full body daylight sightings. Now men do from time to time, but and this was back probably 2009 or 10. But when he could, he asked the question to the woman, "Were you on your menstrual cycle?" And about 90% of the women who had a full daylight sighting of a Sasquatch were also on their menstrual cycle. So yes, I think their behavior, that part of it, people, it's uncomfortable, but there is a sexual component to this,
Mm.
and it's just there. And at what degree I don't, I can't say. Can't study it. You just, I just have the work that David did to kind of fall back on. But I do know, and so they're more comfortable in front of a woman or a child.
Mm.
And so if they're going to show themselves, I
Yeah.
think, behavior, and you're talking about sightings, I think upwards to 95% of the sightings are intentional, or they want you to see them. And
Mm.
I'd say, this is my opinion, I'd say about 5% are accidental. It's hard to sneak up on them, but it can be done. They can be distracted,
Yeah, they're not
or they
infallible, are
can
they?
be preoccupied with something else. But when
Yeah.
they're on point, when they're keen, there is no sneaking up on.
They're
Period.
making a choice,
And
aren't they? I think they're making
yeah,
a choice to show
yeah,
themselves most of the times. What
yeah,
about people in properties then? I think I should have said that really. If a
yeah.
woman's living on her own, what sort of behaviour happens to females rather than to
Well, they
males?
could they could get aggressive if a woman's by herself. When a man is on the property, it really reduces the activity. Doesn't stop it, but it reduces it. It's been but when a woman's by herself, there there can be an increase of, especially like daylight sightings coming closer in, and that sort of thing. And my advice in that situation, of course, is to do the trail cameras and the lights. Go armed. Not so much that shooting them's going to do anything, but they have the sense to know that you're armed, and they don't particularly like that. But when they know it, and so these are all deterrents. And if possible, either have a male friend or someone come over periodically, and make a presence there. That helps. Nothing's 100%. But yeah, when it's women and children, children playing, it's another thing in their behavior that'll draw them to someone's yard. I'm dozens of people call me, and they find the signs, like they'll have the children's play stuff out back, swing sets and stuff like that, and the wife or the dad will look out back, in a rural setting, and they'll either see one, or they'll start seeing the signs that they're back there and they're watching the children. And it is disconcerting. I don't know if we can't read their minds, and you have to be very cautious. But I don't know if that means they're, going to take one of your children or not. But it's just the fact that they're watching them. Same thing with a woman, the fact that they're watching, and they do that a lot. They're watchers, and they're observers. They do a lot of that. I mean, from the spiritual standpoint, you know, that that could be predisposed genetically. I don't know, but uh, they definitely seem to like to observe and watch. I
Mm.
mean, they take full advantage of our placing them in this mythical, uh, existence, and so it's almost like they know
Mm.
if they get caught. They know if a policeman watches them run down the street and then out, off into the woods, the policeman's probably not going to pick them. He's probably just going to keep driving. And because I've had them running in this neighborhood, my actual neighborhood, and the neighbors and everything seeing them, and people get caught into distance going, and all of a sudden they change a juvenile Sasquatch into a little black kid in a hoodie. I mean, but that's how it works. We've got this little black kid in a hoodie that can jump 20 feet out of trees and can,
Mm.
run 30 miles an hour, but, it's just a prowler. That seems to be how people will, well, that can't really exist. I really didn't see that. So that's what I saw.
Yeah,
And
people defend their paradigm pretty fiercely.
exactly, even when they see something that
Yeah.
goes right out,
Yeah.
blows it away, it's just the mind's going to start switching it out with known things. And so you see a lot of that.
Do you mind if I ask you a question? And I think this kind of ties in, but do you think that these beings are becoming more emboldened and are moving closer to urban areas, or at least towns or such, than before? Or do you think that it's just a matter of there's more people talking about it and nothing's really changed?
I I think it's a combination of both. But I because it's becoming more acceptable to talk about it, and people are coming forward. But from personally, I've seen, it appears, this is just anecdotal. I don't have a lot of data points, but it appears that they are becoming a little bit more bold, and they're not as fearful. I mean, that's the only way I can put it. They seem to be not as afraid to be seen. For a long time, it seemed like that was, and it's still a big no-no. It was one of their primary rules: do not be. Number one, you don't let anybody see you, and if someone does see it, it needs to be a woman or a child. Definitely don't let anybody take your picture. That sort of thing. And that seems that rules, there seems to be some loosening in the interaction, and they are close. I mean, when I started doing this research, they're way out in the boonies, and you got to go out to Idaho or California or in some remote area, and I started finding out really quick. No, they're right down here. They're 30 miles away on a 1,500 acre recreational area that's got subdivisions all around it.
Wow.
They're not their own farms. They're on the outskirts of the city. So I think it's I know there's a waffling answer, but I really do think it's about 50-50. I think more people are coming forward, but I also think that I think their population's growing, and I think they're getting bolder.
Okay. And maybe it wasn't fair to me to ask you in that manner. I just wondered what you were thinking on that, because that's something that occurs to me. It's like more and more of these sightings are coming in. The other thing that really baffles me is that these are a being that have subsisted and survived on being, elusive.
Yes.
And yet they'll be on a dead country road, and right when one car comes in the middle of the night, that's when they decide they're going to cross. It's like, really?
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the stuff they do is inexplicable.
Right.
I mean, I think like I said, they use that status to do things. I think they mess with us. They have a sense of humor. I think some of this may be traditions, kind of like counting coup. It's a rite of passage to be seen or to show yourself to a human being. So like I say all the time, you'll talk to one person or that saw one that literally went cloaked and disappeared, and then another one gets ran over by Granny's car, and you're thinking, well, how does this make sense? And of course, I think a lot of it is genetic diversity. Some have abilities that some don't, and depending on how purebred they are, but there's a diversity there. But yeah, it's crazy how that seems to be one of their behaviors is to let you see them. But their motives, like, till we get to sit down and talk with one, and very few people have, I think.
It's hard to know why. You don't know what's in front of you.
Yeah,
or what's going on. I mean, there could be 100 reasons why they're
and that goes back to mine. You don't know what's going on in their head.
Yeah.
He may be stepping out because there's an issue going on. He's being chased by another clan, and he needs to, whether or not your car's coming or not. I mean, or it may be a bunch of teenagers playing truth or dare. And they're like, hey, yeah, but so it just you can't put there. That's they're just like us. It's like why do we do what we do? Why does a bunch of teenagers go out and drink and smoke and raise Cain, and then dare each other to do silly stuff? Sometimes I really think that's what's going on with them.
Tide pods. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. Who knows? There's just no, like I said, we don't have a book on them. We can't talk to them and get their behaviors and get their social norms. They have their own rule set that they live by, and they self-enforce.
Yeah.
They don't have they have a social structure, but it's a lot looser. It's a clan-based, it's family/clan based type of structure. So they kind of police their own, and if they goof up or screw around and do some stuff they shouldn't, they kind of get taken care of. Because it usually if they kill someone or do something really bad, it's going to bring attention, and they know that. They know if we disappear this human, all hell's going to break loose in our woods. And then we're going to have to go hide, and we're going to have to deal with the search parties and the hound dogs, and our whole way of living for the next 6 months is going to be totally but screwed up.
Mm.
And so they're kind of looking at this. All right, what do I do? And I think they make a lot of decisions based on that.
Sure.
Sometimes they even, talk about behavior, the behavior of sometimes acting as scared of us as we are of them.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they may make, a big, bold, they may growl or yell or throw rocks, they'll take off running.
Mm.
Why is that? They could rip us in two. What are they afraid of? Why are they afraid of us?
That's the fascinating bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of why don't they attack people when
Yeah.
when lots of people know they could have done,
Oh,
completely
yeah. I
have
mean,
no choice. And
yeah, I'm no doubt they could, one angry one that had, kind of had, if was kind of like taken off the leash, could do major damage before he got killed. I mean, he could kill dozens. And so, it's scary to think about, the power they have and what they could do.
Yeah.
But something keeps, not to get, like I said, we'll stay in the middle of the road here, but, something keeps them in line. Something. I don't know what. I think I know what, but you know what I'm saying? Something keeps them in line. And it could be a combination of things, self-preservation to, to the rules, to a spiritual aspect. I've even floated. Sometimes it almost seems like there's a treaty, and and this may be if I was floating. I don't care. I've done it before. When many Indian tribes considered them another tribe,
Right.
and traded with them, and there were interaction. And part of me wonders when we started forming this country and we got here and we started encountering and making deals and making treaties. Part of me's wondering if we didn't make a deal or treaty with the Sasquatch tribes or some of them. And it was kind of like, okay, you're a giant, and we really don't want to deal with you. If here's the deal: you stay quiet, you stay hidden, and we'll suppress any, if people see you, we'll just suppress it and try to pawn it off as they saw a bear or whatever. And it's kind of like, live and let live. You do your thing, and as long as you stay over here and you hide, we'll let you have, the state park, and we'll let you have the national park, and we'll let you have these wild areas. You stay over there and you just stay hidden. Because sometimes it's almost like they're acting under some sort of legal, treaty or legal agreement.
or law or
Just
some
the
sort.
behavior.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just want to say thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Well, there's probably killed that. I can never quite say it right. I'm sorry. You'll have to write it as you say it, and then I can always get it right. Going back to if you really simplified things, because I think it's easy, isn't it? And I know you just said before, let's stay in the middle of the road, or let's try and get back to the straight and narrow with it, because it's so easy to put all these what you think. Yeah, it's a good word, good way of putting it. But if you really simplified it and thought of it like, I mean, I know there's like two types of bears. There's one that will like kill you, take outright, and others that are just not interested. Is it the brown bears that'll stay away from you?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think,
So what I'm saying is there are creatures that just don't want trouble. That maybe they're just like that. They don't want trouble.
Well, like I tell people, the problem is they don't wear a sign on their chest that says I'm a good one.
Sure.
Or I'm not going to hurt you. Or I'm a criminal. I'm a psychopathic maniac. Homicidal maniac. And so everybody says they want to go out and look for one, or they want to have an encounter, and that's just it. You don't know what you're going to get. No, they don't wear, like I said, they don't wear a sign. I mean, they can do good deeds and have done good deeds and save people's lives. And then I think in some cases they taken people's lives, and they kidnapped people and done, I think just like we're capable of doing criminal acts, so are they. And one important thing, and a lot of people, grimace when I say this, and this comes from my personal experience and talking to other people that had encounters and even mind speak with them and that sort of thing. you know, like if me and you have a conflict and a disagreement, I'm going to run through my head, okay, how can I solve this problem? You know, we can talk about it, or I can just leave, or whatever. When a Sasquatch is sizing you up and there's a situation, killing you's on the menu. And people don't understand. People got to understand that.
Mhm.
Killing you is on their menu because they don't see us like we're not as valuable as them. You know, they don't put the same value on human life as we do. They just don't. And that's bears out in their actions. And you know, like I had a guy who got mind spoke on property. And he said this thing literally in his mind told him, if I could kill you, I would. I mean, he said it was, and he could just with that type of veracity. He wanted to kill him. He said, if I could kill you, I would. And you know, and I've heard that more than once. Or you know, people getting the feeling that they would, you know, it's almost like I want to kill you, but I can't. And
Wow.
so I think that's important for people to understand. They don't value human life like we do. Yeah, I mean, like they're running their menu, they're saying, well, killing him is going to really be a mess. So I think I'll just run or whatever. Or he's broke his leg. He's right in the middle of our territory. We've got 7 clans right here. If I take him back to the road and drop him off where he can be found, then they're not going to come search for him in the middle of our home area, or come and find his dead body after he's died of exposure. In other words, you know, a lot of people think, oh, they're doing good works, and they could be just out there good, kind-hearted to save someone's life, but they also could be moving you out of their territory and getting you out of there alive, so they don't have to deal with, you know, what comes next if you die.
Right.
You know, it's like if someone fell out of a tree and broke his leg in my backyard, I'm going to help him because of that situation. In their situation, they're wanting him to get something, you know, dump him out of my backyard so where he can be found, so I don't have to deal with it.
Sure.
See that's the way, and I think that's my personal opinion, but that's how they think, and I think sometimes it's difficult for people to understand that. But you know how we are, we humanize everything, right? You know,
That's it. That's it.
the
You know,
the
I have
Jungle Book story, all animals, bears are cuddly, and it's not how it is.
no, no. And maybe none of it is. None of what we're thinking is
Yeah,
right. And this is the frustrating thing.
yeah,
And we all see it from different angles as well, which is interesting because there is so many. But
yeah,
I kind of really think of him as, you know, just another creature. I'm not just saying it like that. I mean, it's
mhm,
obviously very, very unique in its way. But I think it's, you know, more simple. I know it's intelligent in some ways, but I think like most animals, it lives its life quite simply. What it needs to eat, it needs to have shelter, or you know, it needs to have water,
yeah,
and that's the main thing. And I think if any animal, if it feels like it's in trouble or it needs to protect itself, it's going to become aggressive. It's going to become frightened and aggressive,
yeah,
and will just react as it needs to. But like you say, there is some sort of restraint, isn't there? Or there seems to
yeah,
be.
yeah,
And like we've just said, Bigfoot barbecue, none of us can prove anything. This is just our opinions. It's just
Sure.
people's opinions. That's all we
yeah.
can do. If we didn't give any opinions, we wouldn't be having a show and nobody would be talking.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's it.
what I'm saying is basically my experience and my knowledge and the knowledge of others, you know, that form my opinion. You know,
Yeah.
it's everything, you know, most everything's anecdotal. I mean, I will say this, you're talking about, you know, you want proof. And I mean, I'm living proof, you know, on the spiritual aspect. Won't go too far into it, but I used the spiritual concept of rebuking,
Mhm.
and it works. That's the proof. They don't come to my house anymore. They don't bother me anymore. They don't, you know, they don't. While they'll interact, they stay back from me about 300 feet. And you know, that's kind of put me over the edge as far as there's a spiritual component to this, because you know, like if a bear's getting ready to eat me and I rebuke it in the name of
It's
Jesus,
yeah,
it's still going to eat
probably
me.
going to eat you. Yeah.
But here's this tremendously powerful creature with all kinds of abilities, and you know, I call upon that spiritual principle, and it obeys it. So you know, well, you know, you can say, well, where's the proof? Well, right there's, you know, the proof. and some of this is just experience. I've experienced these behaviors.
Yeah.
And I've seen them over and over and over. If anybody watches Steve Ishtal's channel, I mean, it's almost like he's reading the same email, just change the location and the person. I mean, he's read hundreds of emails that are literally almost identical as far as their behavior or what they're doing, you know. And so it's just, it's it's opinion and information based on experience and based on a repeating pattern.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you put the hot frog in hot water, he jumps out. Every time you put him in, he jumps out.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, it's hard,
I
isn't
mean,
it?
I'm watching him jump out, and I know in hot water the frog doesn't like it, and he jumps out. So, same thing with Sasquatch. Every time this happens, he does something. I mean, I
Mhm.
can document it on film or write it down in the book, but at the end of the day, you put it up here and you recognize, you see this behavior pattern.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a difficult subject, isn't it, to get
Yeah.
through without,
Right.
not being able to prove anything. Of course, we can't. And I've always said people are kind of just experts of their own experience. They
Hmm.
know what they saw, they know what they felt, and that's as far as they can go. There's so many
Yeah.
accounts. There's got to be a point where we can start connecting the same dots and have a pattern, see a pattern of things. And
Hmm.
I don't know if I mean, I'm talking about a real, like,
Yeah.
database spreadsheet. I don't know if anyone's doing it, but really logging so many things that maybe eventually we get some correlation or something. I
Yeah.
don't know, but, it goes back to the beginning. What's important is being there for people, because this is all, like you say, so many rabbit holes you can go down,
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, but it's important to be, if you've got any good questions, people, put them in the
Yeah.
caps and
People are,
we'll answer them.
I see
Yeah,
them rolling by there.
I'll do them in 5 minutes. I will
Yeah.
definitely answer people's questions.
Yeah. Let me say this, because the Sasquatch phenomenon, whatever you want to say, what makes it so difficult is you can't just say, well, they're a human hybrid, and that's what I think they are. But some people believe they're more animal, whatever. They're always it always goes to some sort of supernatural component or some sort of paranormal component. It just does. If you do this work, if you study them long enough and you're doing it, sincerely, and you're really working at it, then the woo, whatever you all want to call, people call it the woo, the paranormal, uh, whatever, it will happen. And I can state that with a fact. It will happen. Everybody, it happened to me. It's happened to Dave. It's happened to Steve. It's happened to Gray. I mean, these people I know. It's happened to people I warned that asked me, "Hey, I'm going to start researching." I'm like, "Don't go play golf, go hunting, go fishing. Don't start researching." And
Mhm.
then I warn them, and then 2 years into it, I'm getting the phone call. Yeah, well now they showed up at my house, and these orbs are zipping around the backyard, and I saw a UFO yesterday, and well, what's going on? And I'm like, well, there you go, because that's what I'm saying. That's what happened to me is all this secondary craziness started happening from and it's going. I mean, it's like a natural law. It's going to happen. It will
Mhm.
happen. And even your big names can Bobo for one. I've talked to him. He's seen orbs. He's had the other paranormal deals, the mind speak, the infrasound. I mean that's just it. It's going to happen. And
Something eventually it's got
and
to.
yeah,
Something's
and it's
done,
like
hasn't it?
yeah, and it's like I had a ghost hunter one time. This is see all these things. This is what's so crazy. The UFO, the ghost, paranormal, Sasquatch, the other cryptids. They all there's a commonality. Because if you do one of the others long enough, you're going to encounter the other phenomena. I mean, I literally had a ghost hunter here in town. They were they were at it wasn't remote, but it was like a country graveyard doing a ghost hunt, and a Sasquatch showed up, scared them to death.
Mm.
They saw the red glowing eyes, and then it screamed at them, and two or three of them got a good look at it. Well, she contacts me because she had seen I lived in town and stuff, and she said, "I just want to learn about the Sasquatch thing." Well, I took her out and showed her some stuff and kind of try to get her up to speed. And I learned as much from her as she did from me, because all of a sudden, this is just like the hitchhiker effect, where if you go looking for them, you're giving them tacit permission to follow you. That happens in ghost hunting all the time. And she says, you have to be real careful. You'll get, she called it attachment. And then you'll take one of these spirits back home with you. And then, then craziness starts happening at your house. And I started scratching. I said, well, it's kind of funny, because the same thing happened to me with Sasquatch. Yeah. And so, it kind of bleeds together. And same thing with the UFO. When I wrote my book, I did a deep dive on the Sasquatch UFO relationship, and about 25% of the Sasquatch reports have a UFO in it, and about 25% of the UFO reports have Sasquatch. Either they were on the UFO, the UFO landed and it ran off of the UFO landed and it ran on the UFO, or someone saw lights in the sky or a UFO and then had a ground sighting. And vice versa. Someone saw a Bigfoot, a day later they saw a UFO, and it goes right into orbs. I had a guy in California, eyewitness, seeing a Sasquatch walking through the woods with a red orb orbiting around it. It was like he could control it, and it was orbiting around its head.
Wow!
As it was just walking, it was walking, and this thing was just zipping around his head. And so that's what I'm saying. That's the rabbit holes you can go down, and that's what makes this subject matter so crazy. Yeah, because it will go here. It will. That's just it. Everybody says, well, why do you have to go there? And it's like, I don't want to go there. Yeah. If you're following the evidence and what's going on, and you're documenting, you have a choice to make. A lot of friends that did research, that's where their knowledge stopped, because once all this weird stuff started happening to them, they just quit that. They just said, well, I'm not even paying attention to it. Yeah. I don't care if I see an orb. I don't care if I watch it just disappear in thin air. I must have had something bad to eat that day, and that's why it cloaked itself, and they just stop.
That comes up all the time in the paranormal, though. I mean, we always, I've talked to hundreds of witnesses who've started with maybe a ghost experience, and then next thing they know, they're seeing things in the sky, and the next thing they know, they got things around their house, and it does seem to have the spiderweb thing. And I almost wonder if it's not an awareness thing that gets tripped in us, that suddenly we become sensitized to this other part of reality that we just normally aren't, and it's speculative.
Yeah, I know. Sure. I mean, there's a saying in the Sasquatch research: they know, you know.
Yeah.
And they're keenly aware. Once you have experienced one, and it's like they know that awareness in you, and like you say, you're also going to be more. You kind of opens you up to that, and there's people, I call it getting marked, and I think they mark you somehow, or they know somehow. I mean, I'm not bragging, but and I wish it wouldn't happen, but if I go on a trip somewhere for a couple of weeks or a week, usually about the third or fourth day, if there's Sasquatch in the area, they're showing up. They just are. I can't stop it. I don't want it to happen, but they will. And I'm not there. I mean, and Dave and other people I know have reported this. That phenomenon happens. It's like they show up, or they make themselves known. And like you say, maybe you're more aware of it, but it almost seems like they know.
Sure.
They know, and then sometimes they'll. It's almost like they want to leave you like a little calling card to say, yeah, we acknowledge you. However they want to do it.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It just, like I said, it can always go. I mean, you could do 100 shows and just start with this rabbit hole, and we go. Literally, it's just, there's all kinds of behaviors and rabbit holes you could go down.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong, I think, with following a path that you think it might be. I mean, you can follow it for a bit, and if it doesn't work out, you go on another one, can't you?
I'm always going to live and let live. If someone thought it was whatever, I'm like, good, go for it. Go down that path and go as far as you can go. If you think it's supernatural, go there. If you think it's a human hybrid, go there. If you think it's a bipedal ape, still go there. And if you follow evidence, you'll find out. It'll lead you. If you're open-minded, that's the problem. Most people they'll close their mind and says, well, it's got to be this or it's got to be that. And it's not all, that's all I tell people is just be open-minded when you go there, and don't be afraid when it does something out of your preconceived notion to go ahead and take that step and go down that path.
Yeah.
And see, what's going on here.
That's a great point. I think that people do sometimes go into it with their paradigm filter. They have an expectation of what they're going to find, and they aren't allowing themselves to experience maybe the entire thing that they are experiencing. And I'm not sure what they are. I'm not trying to speculate on that, but whenever, I mean, with any kind of inquiry, if you're really going to research something, you've got to let the breadcrumbs lead where they lead, and you've got to be open to that path. Otherwise you're limiting yourself. You're probably going to be limiting what you can find and experience, because once you start filtering things out of your own paradigm, it just, it's skewed.
You go where the evidence takes you, and it takes you. It took me in very uncomfortable places.
Yeah,
and then and then if you talk about it, people think you're a whack job. I mean, that's just the way it is, But like I say, you still had the experience, and that's where this community and sharing this information, because I found out I'm not a whack job. It's amazing when I would tell my experiences, then I'd get 25 emails. Hey, the exact same thing happened to me. So we're not alone. I mean, if I could say anything to the audience out there, the people that are in, we're not alone. You're not alone. The experience you had, I guarantee you someone else had it. And that's the whole point. You don't have to be alone anymore. You don't have to be afraid to share your experience. You're not crazy. You're not a lunatic. You didn't make it up. What happened to you is real. It wasn't a figment of your imagination. I mean, a lot of people just need to hear that, because I mean, I dealt with people. I dealt with a doctor that, was ready to about lose his mind, because he'd seen one. He was an orthopedic guy, and he'd seen one close up about 15 feet away.
Oof.
And his whole, like he told me, is what happened was basically he went into that analytical mode, and he said, just automatically, I'm looking at muscle groups, I'm seeing, it's breathing. When it turns, I watch the shoulders, and I watch the muscle groups, and I watched it walk away, and it was a real sentient being in front of me. And then when I have nowhere to go with this. I can't tell my colleagues. I can't tell my wife or my children. I've got I promised him I want he's a known name in this town. You mention his name, people knows who this guy would know this guy. And to this day, I don't know how he found me. He literally texted me and introduced himself. I almost didn't return it. And I don't really, I've got a couple ideas of a couple of people may have given him my number, but that's how he got a hold of me. I mean, he was that scared, but he just wanted someone to tell him, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
He wanted to know. I said, no, you're not. I have seen them too. You're not crazy. They do exist. And that's what he wanted. He just wanted that, justification. Yeah, exactly. That I wasn't crazy, because he knew he wasn't crazy. That's the problem. He knew he wasn't crazy. He knew what he saw. He knew it was a real thing. He knew it was a being. He knew it wasn't a man in a suit. But everything else was screaming, this is not supposed to exist. This is not supposed to be here. And then he, the PTSD and all that goes with it, and the questioning of who he is, and the whole paradigm. I mean, it's a big thing for people. It's not easy.
It's a massive ripple effect, isn't there, from one encounter? It just goes on and on. We'll get to the questions, but all your details are in the description. There's an email address.
People email me. I'll try. I do my best to get back to them as soon as I can. I'm way behind. Please forgive me, because it's just, I'm not, like I said, 100 emails could, it puts me way behind, and I probably got 300 or 400.
Okay,
still trying to waddle through.
Well,
not thousands, but it's still, trying to answer everybody.
It's still enough, isn't it? And you're doing a few things on your channel now. You've been putting some videos out. You might be going live. I don't know. to save
Yeah,
you
I'm
all that
thinking, like
editing.
we were talking about that. I was thinking
Then
about
you can
doing
do
live.
you. Then you can answer all your emails. You've got
Yeah,
a
then I can answer all the questions.
yeah. Are you doing a regular thing on your channel now? Are you putting something out a week now?
I'm trying to do
Yeah.
one a week, if not two,
hmm
and maybe three. It's just like we were talking in the pre-show there. It's so, I'm still working a full-time job. And so, I have a limited amount of time. It takes, a couple of hours to put out 30 minutes worth of content. It's, time you do it, produce it, and run it through the editor and make it at least look halfway presentable,
Well, you've
it
got a
takes,
compliment here. Brown Dwarf Scott recently did a great video on stick structures. So
yeah, I'm just basically what I did is I'm just I wrote the book, and like I said, it's a simple, it's a basic book. Someone who's had an encounter, doesn't know anything about Sasquatch, you could buy the book and hand it to them. That was the motivation behind it. Just a basic material that someone who's never heard of a Sasquatch could get, but also to give to someone, educationally, that they could be informed. Give them a book about going hiking in the Smokies, and how the book will have, where the trails are, how to get water, where the rest areas are. Tells you about the local wildlife and what to look out for. That's what I'm doing. I'm just doing it in the Sasquatch in the book, and then I'm taking the book and I'm expounding on that, and it's probably going to take me a while. I mean, I'm like in chapter 2, but
all right.
I'm doing videos based on the book and then expounding on those subjects. So you get so eventually, hopefully one day I'll have the whole book done and I can group all those together. And
Yeah.
so you can have the book and then you can go to the videos.
And what you're essentially doing is awareness.
Yes,
It's
it's
just
awareness. If I
trying
want,
to give people a heads up, whether they believe it or
exactly.
not. It's worth thinking about, isn't it? It's worth
Yeah.
just considering. Let's get to some questions before we end. We've got Ryan Carboy. Scott, in your opinion, what do you think the nuclear paternal DNA site consists of? Sorry if this was discussed earlier. I don't think we have discussed that, did we?
No, I didn't go down that.
Yeah.
That's the spiritual aspect of it. This is based on my personal beliefs. I'm a Christian, so I look at my world paradigm as through that lens, and so I think that that their DNA is fallen angel. In other words, not direct fallen angel, but basically fallen angels. It's called the Nephilim. They came down. They took human wives, and then their progeny was a human hybrid, the giants. And I think they are the descendants way down the line of that. I think that's where the nuclear DNA came from.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Now, you can insert, a lot of people like to insert, extraterrestrials there instead of which angels really are, if you think about it. But, you can insert whatever, but, that's my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Laurie, thank you. Appreciate that. If I don't put one of your questions up, there's a couple in there. I think that I know Scott's definitely covered. So you may have come in a little bit late. So go back to the beginning after the show and you can catch up with other things that I said. Got one here from Shane Carpenter. Have you noticed arches in the tracks?
Depends on the size of the tracks.
Okay.
Like like if it's a track that's 10 inches or bigger, seems like the older they get flat-footed, and
Right.
they spread out. And so, like when I find a bigger track, it's a flat square print. But if I find infants or I find like a juvenile, sometimes the foot looks like a kid or a person running around barefooted. But
Right.
it seems to be around that 10 to 11 inch. The foot flattens out. The toes even seem to start flattening out because they're not wearing shoes,
Yeah.
and they lose their arch. They go flat-footed. And I think there was a study, and I can't remember it. I started to put it in my book, but I so much where they were, the natives and there was a tribe in South America that was on the Horn that basically went naked. But since they were acclimated to going that way, they could tolerate a lot colder weather with less clothes, and they never wore shoes. They talked about the flat feet that ever, basically late teens, they got, everybody had a flat foot, with a real heavy callus. And I think the Sasquatch are the same way.
Hmm.
That's what
That's
I've
interesting.
noticed around here.
Okay, thank you. Last one here we'll do. Denise G from Kentucky. What's been your scariest encounter, Scott? We've got to have a bit of an encounter story
Yeah.
tonight if we can.
Well, is it all right if I do the dog man encounter?
Sure.
Because that's the scariest.
Yeah.
And God, that's a 20-minute story, so I have to really do it fast.
Oh,
So
wow.
long story short, I went in and I was doing the Sasquatch research. I had a dog man come up behind me, and that's the back trail footage that I have, where you see it kind of weaving and then it goes down. It's got a flat snout, and it's got a little big gray being on the shoulder that we can't figure out what that being is. And so we were in the middle of the DNA study, and they didn't want to go. Nobody wanted to go anywhere near it, because back then, Dogman was, taboo. No. We don't talk about that, because people already think we're crazy. If we've got, if we start doing Dogman, they'll really, think we're off the rails. But Dave Pilates, Dave's like, but it would be nice to get some samples, hair samples for later. So, like an idiot, without anybody with me, I went back in the same area a week later, putting up hair traps with bacon and all kinds of stuff. Well, I put all the hair traps up and put the bacon out, and I'm walking out, and I catch movement out my right eye, and it's a really thick area. The foliage is literally like eye level to me, and there's a trail, but you could reach out and grab me, I would never see you. And so I catch this movement, and I look over, and this thing has jumped up on the side of a tree, and it hung its claws in the tree, and it leaned back and it looked over into its right shoulder at me. So, so it's probably 8 to 10 feet off the ground now, where it can see me and I can see it. So I raised the camera up, and I'm all excited, and I'm zooming in, zooming out, and it's in thick foliage. So I'll zoom in for a second, and you can kind of see it. And then then it goes out of focus because there's all this foliage. So as I'm zooming in and out, it's like I come to myself. It's like this little, hey, dummy. And it finally dawns on me what I'm looking at. And I get scared. I'm like, oh, I stopped trying, I kind of realize what's going on. So I have a pistol, and I know people are going to say, well, I don't carry around it, so I don't shoot my foot off. It's a semi-automatic. It was a 40, but, and my brain says, hey, you need to go ahead and get around in that, get around in the chamber. Well, I put the monopod and I cycle around. Of course, I let it go like a dummy, and it makes the big loud clang, And when I do that, this creature, like, it's weird, because he wasn't really looking at me. He was up on the tree, and he was doing the side eye thing. Sasquatch will do the same thing. They won't look directly at you. I think it's the old thing, like, if you stare at somebody, you get the creeps that, know that you're being watched. So they won't look directly at you. And so it's not looking directly at me until I do the pistol. And when I do the pistol, it's like its ears are this way, and it does like a dog. It looks and swivels those ears and looks directly at me. And then I'm like, oh no, that's not what I said, but this is PG. So, and so it's like looking at me, but if they were the deadest, coldest eyes I've ever seen, black, and it's like when I look at, like when you look at another person, or you look at a dog, or even when I've had a Sasquatch encounter where I made eye contact with Sasquatch, there was a soul there. There was a being. There was a living creature, living person, living animal. When this thing looked at me, I got nothing. I mean, nothing. There was no life in the eyes. I mean, it was looking at me, but it was looking right through me. It's hard to describe. That's the hardest thing to describe, is just the look and the feeling you get. I mean, I meant nothing to this thing. I mean, there was nothing there. So its eyes were locked on me. I'm about to have a heart attack. I now, I've got the gun in my right hand, and it's time to get out of there. And I just know this thing's going to jump off that tree, and it's coming. And I'm thinking, I'm running these scenarios through my head. Okay, if it's on the ground on all fours, I'm going to kneel down, and I'm just going to go until, and I reached around and found my knife, and I went ahead and got the knife ready to pull out. I'm like, I'm just going to unload, and then, if I'm going to go down, that's what I thought. I'll just go down fighting. And I said, if it comes off and I said this to myself in my head real quick. It's running, center mass. So, I'm ready, and I'm looking at it, and it's looking at me, and after about, and time slows down, maybe a couple minutes, nothing happens. It's looking at me, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, and my mind then I just start saying, leave, just get out, leave. It wasn't speaking to me, I was just saying it to myself. So I start backing out, and it watches me the whole time I'm moving. It's turning its head and watching me, but it let me back out and leave. And the funny thing is, my ex-wife went to a campground that was nearby to visit some friends, and the cell service was really bad, and I couldn't get her on the cell service. And so as I'm walking away, I'm being followed, I'm being trailed, and it's making a lot of noise. It's giving me the good old-fashioned escort out there, and it's letting me know it's following me. I get about a half a mile away, and I call Dave on the phone. And at this time, he's living in, I think, Colorado. And I just quickly, I said, I'm telling you right now, I can't get a hold of my wife. I've just seen the dog man. I said, I'm scared to death. This thing is going to try to kill me. I said, if I don't call you back in 30 minutes, you call 911. And I gave him, I said, this is where I'm at. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I said, did you hear me? He said, yeah, dog man, call 911 if you don't call. Because I scared, like, if you got me out here, you got me on the hook for this. So, you're going to have to be the one to call it in, then you can do your 411 story. So, you'll make money off of me either way you go. So, but anyway, and I started, and I'd left voicemail. So I made my way to the main road, and I started walking out. And you get this picture, here I am walking out with a 40 caliber handgun in one hand and a monopod in the other. It's, and it's like an access road. So it's paved, but not a whole lot of traffic. Well, here comes my wife up in the Jeep, and obviously she could tell by my face and the fact that I have no color that, she whips the Jeep around. I throw everything in the back, and I get in, and I'm just like, go, just go. And so we get on the main drag and a couple of miles away, and I'm still got the gun cocked and loaded between my legs. And she looks over and she says, I think we're far enough away. I think you can, is that loaded? And I said, yeah, you bet it is. She said, let's take, let's unload that thing and let's stop. And so she pulled over into a little shopping, we call them shopping rods, a little, convenience store. and she's like, and she says, I told her real quickly what had happened. And I said, I think I got a little bit of it on video. So we, had one of those, it's little handy cam things. And and sure enough, you could, it's not perfect, but you can tell it's there. Mm-hmm. And so, but that's the scary story. That's the scariest I've ever been. Wow. It wasn't a Sasquatch, but it was actually a dog.
Dogman.
Yeah. That was unintended consequences. I wasn't researching Dogman. Didn't want to have an encounter with a Dogman. Didn't want anything to do with Dogman. And then boom, there you go.
It happens. Yeah. You hear that a lot, don't you, with these creatures, same with Sasquatch, that they are not even looking at you. Like you don't even exist. They just carry on what they're doing. They know you think they know you're there, but there's just nothing, no reaction. It is strange, isn't it? But look, we'll have to have you back on again because there's so much. We've really just sort of scratched the surface on this subject. But it is great talking to you and catching up again. So I appreciate you coming on tonight, Scott. Thank you.
Oh, loved it. Thank you, guys.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Thank you, Brent, of course, for being here tonight. And I hope you feel better soon. You're on the portal tonight, 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. I hope I can keep going without coughing too bad, but getting over a head cold, so bear with me.
Okay. What time are you on tonight? Is it
7 p.m. Pacific?
7 Pacific. I can't work out what that is central.
9 Central.
There you go, 9 Central. So go over there and check out Brent's show. And thanks to everybody, of course, who's turned up in the chat. Thanks to a moderator and everybody who asked questions. I will see you all soon, hopefully at the weekend. But until then, everyone, have a great night, and I'll see you all soon. Good night now.